Greetings chess friends, Robbie again with another video looking at weak colour complexes and how we can apply square strategy theory in order to exploit those weak colour complexes. And in this particular middle game plan we're going to try to create a weak colour complex. So please have a look at the position. Take as long as you feel is necessary, and try to find some candidate moves. Of course, we apply square strategy theory. We look at the areas of our opponent's camp and certain squares which appear to us to be weak. We make an investigation and we try to determine just how weak they are. So please look at the position, pause the video and come back in a little while and we'll talk some more. Well, chess friends, hopefully you paused the video and you did a survey of the respective camps in our opponent's side of the board. The d5 and the e5. Now we can see that looking at the base squares that this square here is particularly weak. The h7 square. Normally it would be defended by a knight on f6, but here it is only one defender, the king. And it's fairly easy to see that if we attack this square it will create further weaknesses, because there is in fact only one way to defend it, and that of course is pushing this pawn here to g6. Is there a move that attacks that square? Well, indeed there is. It threatens checkmate. Queen to d3. Putting pressure, of course, on this colour complex here. Whoops. On this colour complex here. White squares on the king side. And there is, of course, as we have stated, only one way to defend this, and it is to push the pawn to g6. And you will of course notice, because you're well used to it by now, that we have created a weak dark squared colour complex on the king side. Now it is of course our goal to occupy this weak colour complex. We're going for a king side attack. If there's any opportunity we will try to open files and diagonals against the king. We'll occupy these weak squares and we'll attack the squares of the opposite colour. So knowing this from our study of square strategy theory, can you think of any candidate moves that would help us to occupy or control this weak colour complex? And of course one of the moves that springs to mind is repositioning the queen and moving the queen, of course, to d2. The queen of course puts pressure on these squares and prepares to come up here to h6. Black here tries some counterplay on the queen side by playing a5, and we immediately go about occupying the weak colour complex. We have a plan of bringing the knight up here to g5 and mating black on h7 square. Now naturally black is not going to stand for that, and you'll try to create counterplay, and in this instance plays the move f5, seeking to perhaps bring a queen or a rook to the 7th rank and defending this weak square here on h7. Now, what do we do in such a position? Well, we can see that f6 is adequately defended by black. We could try and bring the knight here to g5, but again black is able to defend this weak square here with the queen or the rook. We therefore simply continue our square strategy theory, simply continue to try to occupy the dark squares. Of course we do this with the move e takes f6 en passant, opening up this file against to the black king, and of course occupying the f6 square. Of course black recaptures the pawn, and this is a very interesting position. How do we continue? We see that this now has a defender. We might have been tempted by the move knight g5, but knowing that we're going for a kingside attack, and having seen a similar position earlier on when we discussed the basics of square strategy theory, we have a rather excellent move to open up files and diagonals against our opponent's king. Can you see the move? Well, of course the killer move is bishop takes g6. Remember, we saw an example of this earlier when we were studying the basics. We're occupying the dark squares and we're attacking the squares of the opposite colour with this bishop sacrifice. Of course, black recaptures and we play queen g6 check. King h8, and here is a rather interesting moment. How do we continue the attack? Well, it's worthy to note that again we have this weakened colour complex. This bishop here that would normally defend this complex is far off, and if we could, we would love to bring a bishop or a rook up here to e5 in order to bring it across here to meet the enemy king. And looking at this complex, we can see that there is a defender of this colour complex, the knight here on c6. Therefore our plan should be to try to rid ourselves of this knight and bring either a bishop or a rook up to e5 in order to once again put pressure on this colour complex. So the move that we make is knight f to e5. Black tries to defend with gaining a tempo on the queen. Queen checks, king goes to g8. And now, of course, we remove the defender of the e5 square with knight takes e6. And this complex here is becoming weaker and weaker. Rook takes c6, bishop e5. And there is of course no defense. Black tries to play knight h5, trying to defend the complex with his knight, and we have queen to h8 check on the dark squares. King f7 only move. Queen h7 check. Knight g7. And of course, we now play the queen takes g7, checkmate. Having full occupation of these dark squares, we have mated Black's king. And of course that all started because we were simply able to threaten this weak colour complex, or this weak square here on h7, and creating a weak colour complex around the black king on the dark squares. So thank you very much again for watching this little video on weak colour complexes and square strategy theory, how to create and exploit weak colour complexes. We'll do another short video soon. Take care. Bye bye.